Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the Next Gen Game Plan, a podcast for future sports leaders. I'm your host, Tyler Darr, and on this podcast, I'll be interviewing sports industry professionals to learn about their career paths and what advice they have for those looking to break into the sports industry. Today, we'll be joined by Jeff Feld. Jeff is a basketball operations executive who spent nearly 20 years working at the highest level of the sport, including the NBA, G League, and Division I college basketball. He got his start working for Hall of Fame coach Lute Olson at the University of Arizona, where he was a part of 4 NCAA tournament teams, advancing to the Sweet 16 twice, the Elite Eight, and winning the Pac-10 championship. He made the jump to the NBA in 2012, clinching 6 playoff berths with 3 different organizations, including 3 trips to the NBA Finals and a World Championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016. Jeff, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with me today. How are you doing?
Hey, Taylor, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, and I'm super excited to get to know you a little bit more and see what your journey was all about.
Absolutely.
So before we jump right in, to get started, could you tell us about your background and your journey of how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So my journey began, I think like a lot of people, is just super interested in sports growing up, played sports, wanted a career in sports, and found out, pretty early on that it probably wasn't going to be on the professional side, at least playing wise. I ended up going to the University of Arizona for college, was a huge college basketball fan, and had an opportunity to join the basketball staff as a student manager. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point, but had a chance to work and be around the team and decided that I wanted to get into coaching. That was probably early on, and probably by then in my freshman year that I decided that. And when you don't have a playing background, being a manager is kind of the next best thing you can do to just be around the game at a high level. That opportunity really kind of led to different roles within the basketball program at the U of A. And by the time I graduated, I had an offer to stay on with Sean Miller, who was the head coach, the incoming head coach, in a basketball operations role, and oversaw some of our scouting, player evaluation, so on and so forth. So was with him for another 2 years. And then that's eventually when I had an interest in jumping over to the front office side in the NBA, where I was with the Cleveland Cavaliers for 4 years, the Chicago Bulls for 2 years, and then the Phoenix Suns for another 4 years, and a couple of different jobs kind of sprinkled in, throughout, taking advantage of my journalism degree and doing some sports writing and media coverage, and then working most recently in event operations, and more directed towards youth sports.
That's awesome. Seems like you've had a lot of really great experiences, a lot of different organizations. Kind of cool to see how far you've come just from being at the U of A to now doing all these different great things with these different professional teams. Could you tell us a little bit more about what basketball operations entails as a whole?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what level of basketball you're talking about or where specifically you are. But overall, it's anything from, the administrative side, logistics, team travel, to really comes down to strategy. There's different things within analytics, within staff hiring, personnel evaluation, really everything that kind of makes programs and organizations churn kind of comes down to basketball operations. Everything that's I should say kind of outside of the coaching side of it. Working in college, again, like I said, it's, managing academics, the players, travel, recruiting, all the, video operations as well. And on the pro side, that included scouting, entail, managing the health and medical staff, performance staff, and just really trying to find ways to give your organization a leg up and be as competitive as possible.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Good to know a little bit more about background of what you do. So then looking at more of your past experiences, a lot of your roles have revolved around basketball operations. What has made working in this area of sports so attractive to you, and how were you able to break into the field to begin with?
Yeah, so I think what's really exciting for me personally is that really having the opportunity to wear a number of different hats in the organizations that I've been with. I think that's there are a lot of specialists in the sport, whether you're a coach, whether you're a personnel evaluator, a trainer, if you're on the business side. And for me, I found, I think early on that I, for lack of better terms, probably got bored with, just doing one thing, and really wanted to expand my skill set and knowledge base and figure out a way to incorporate the different avenues and the different channels of professional sports or high level sports into one job. And so I think that that's what really excited me. I'm a meticulous person when it comes to detail and process, and really appreciate getting to learn best practices from other industry professionals, other sports, even things outside of sports, and being able to apply it and see if it works and if it sticks with what you're trying to accomplish, which is ultimately winning. And then, just like I said, how I kind of broke into it was just originally kind of getting in on the ground floor of being a student manager, and eventually just using relationships and working hard and kind of working your way up.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. It's a great experience to hear about, and super cool to see kind of how you took your interests and turned it into where you are today. And based on your experiences, what are some ways that college students can set themselves up for a career in sports?
Yeah, it's a question that I get asked quite a bit. I think the number one thing that people need to realize is that, like most industries, but specifically with sports, it's a relationships-based industry, and making connections and doing it organically is incredibly important. It's obviously, along with entertainment, it's probably the most competitive industry in the world. And it's more so about who that kind of helps you get your foot in the door. And then what kind of keeps you in the game and kind of helps you elevate. But really the thing that's benefited me more than anything is learning that from an early age, and taking advantage of networking opportunities and meeting essentially my colleagues and my counterparts, I should say, with different teams, and building those relationships and kind of just growing that network as organically as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think networking can be understated how important it is, especially when you're trying to get into the sports industry. And then kind of building on that, what are some things that people should know before going into the operations side of sports?
I think it's important for people to know that it's a cutthroat industry, and that if you're not willing to do the work and work as hard as you can and do it diligently, that there's a million people lined up to do that work for you and take your job essentially. I think that's probably the most important thing to understand, is the attention to detail, the diligence that goes into any field, but really a competitive field where people see it as a dream profession, and also understanding that it's not a typical 9 to 5. There's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made, both with your social life, with your family life, working nights, weekends, holidays, no real set schedule. And then also there's relatively no job security in the field either. So not said to try to, make it sound scarier than it is, but it's just kind of a reality I think that people have to truly understand.
Absolutely. That's definitely something that's important to know before you go into it, as some people might not be comfortable with it, but other people will be really interested and still think that the benefits outweigh any of the downsides of working in the sports industry. What specific skills do you believe are important for people to have to be successful in the sports industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the most basic level, obviously it depends what sport you're involved with, and having a deep understanding and knowledge of that sport. Having played that sport probably helps. For me personally, I didn't pick up basketball until I was, seriously, at least until I was probably closer to about high school. And by that point, it was kind of like a crash course in trying to catch up. And, not playing competitively, I think, did put me at a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's something that I think I was able to overcome. But having that knowledge of the sport, and then finding a way to make your work stand out, make your habits stand out, and to market yourself to stand out in a way that's significantly different than other people who you might be similar to on paper or on a resume. And a lot of that is getting in somewhere, proving yourself to a coach or to an organization, and then starting to build those relationships. And, if you're of value to an assistant coach or to an operations director, and they go on and get a job elsewhere and are able to poach you and bring you with, that's kind of how you start to naturally move your way up.
Awesome. That's a great point. I didn't even consider that, but definitely building those relationships and kind of moving your way along is definitely something that's very important for people to be able to do in the sports industry. And then kind of looking more at your education, you spent time studying journalism at the University of Arizona. How has that helped you in your role now, and how have the things that you learned from that degree translated over to your roles in operations and in your editorial roles as well?
Yeah, so I originally, kind of full disclosure, I picked journalism because I knew that I would be working with the basketball team early on, and there wasn't really, a coaching major or a basketball major, that I could have picked. And writing always came naturally to me. It was something I enjoyed. And to be completely truthful, it required the least amount of math to graduate. And math is always something I wanted to stay away from. And so it did give me an opportunity to learn the industry more. I had an interest in possibly getting involved in broadcast journalism with sports at some level. And so having that degree has been wholly valuable to me, even though I hadn't planned on using it. Now, after I had left the Chicago Bulls, I had an opportunity to do some editorial work for Forbes Sports rather, and for The Athletic. Things that I never thought that I would be doing in covering sports and covering basketball, in the business of basketball. And that was a terrific opportunity for me, not only to do something that was a little bit outside of my skill set of what I'd done before, but also kind of gave me a different lens and gave me a different perspective to look at professional sports and even college sports. So then when I did jump back into working in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns, it kind of gives you a different perspective and allows you to see things from a different vantage point that can ultimately, I think, help you grow.
No, I love that. I'm a big proponent of looking through things through different perspectives, and that's really cool to see how that kind of helped you when you came back to the NBA. And then kind of building on your time in the NBA, when you were with the Cleveland Cavaliers, what was it like to be a part of the championship team in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I almost probably think about every single day. Truly special experience for me. Coming into joining the Cavaliers, my first 2 years, we were in rebuilding mode, and the organization was still kind of reeling after LeBron left, and a couple of years earlier, and going from being a lottery team 2 years in a row and the team with the worst record in the league. Obviously it was a huge gift having LeBron come back to his hometown, and our team happened to be the hometown team. But that also kind of put an enormous pressure on the organization to deliver right away, and knowing that our timeline was short, and to be able to flip it from, winning 20 to 25 games to being expected to go to the finals, which we were fortunate enough to do in that first year. I think what I took away from that experience, not only learning from those that I worked with and reported to, and David Griffin, who was the GM at the time, and Trent Redden is the assistant GM, really learning from them and seeing how they handled it and flipped it. I think understanding the aura of LeBron James and what he brings to a community and to an organization, and seeing the professionalism that he brings and how he's really able to elevate an entire organization from top to bottom was remarkable. I've never seen anybody with that kind of work ethic, with that focus, with the basketball acumen. And it was just truly remarkable to see, not only on a day-to-day basis, but then obviously our second time going to the finals, overcoming, a deficit, the 3-1 deficit, which had never been done before, to the best regular season team of all time in the Warriors. They won 73 games. So just being a part of that, I mean, I understand you can't take for granted an opportunity to go to a championship series like the finals. There's people that I know in the industry that have been working in it for 25, 30, 35 years and have never gotten to a conference finals. And so appreciating that every single day, knowing how fortunate I was to be a part of that. And on top of that, do it at another organization as well, at least reach the finals. So it's something that I never take for granted.
Awesome. Yeah, that whole experience sounds extremely exciting. Obviously, the 3-1 comeback is something that people will always look back on, and the fact that you got to be a part of it and seeing how LeBron James can make a team go from rebuilding to championship contenders so quick, that's a really cool experience that you can reflect on, and really cool to share that with us. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then kind of looking on the outside of the sports industry, I noticed you volunteered with your dog as part of multiple pet therapy teams. What made you decide to do this, and how has it helped you more on a personal and professional level?
Yeah. I'm a dog lover. I always have been, always grown up with them, have 2 Siberian Huskies of my own. And really, I think about probably a little over a year ago or so, I had some interest in a little bit of time to explore doing some volunteer work with her. She's now 11 years old, but looked into the process and I've always seen how my dogs have brought joy to people in public and in kind of different areas. And so was able to get certified and spend some time in hospitals and around some other groups, at-risk youth. And I think just seeing the joy that she was able to bring different people, it's a feeling like none other. And honestly, if that was a paying job, I would almost say that rivals working in sports as far as a dream job, and being able to just kind of see the effect you can have on people. I think that kind of works into the perspective side of it. With sports, I think when you are in an environment like a hospital or with kids who are less fortunate, it really just brings back the point that working in sports is working. It's a game. And while people's livelihoods, are dependent on it, at the end of the day, there are significantly more important things in the world. But at the same time, I've also seen how sports have that same effect on people as well. You see it with, Make-A-Wish, you see it with different foundations and the impact that athletes can have on people. And so I do think that there's some crossover there as well. And it's pretty unique and special.
That's incredible. No, thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. That's one of the reasons I love sports so much, is just the way it brings people together. And similar to you, I'm a huge dog person. I feel like they're just such special creatures, the way they just are so affectionate to everyone they meet. And the fact that you are taking your dog to help other people and bring them that joy too is really special. I hope I can do something like that one day. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of finishing up here, if you could give one piece of advice to someone looking to break into the sports industry, what would it be?
I think the most important thing for people to understand and to realize is to start early, to never burn bridges, have thick skin, and understand that the path to being successful in sports, either working in sports or playing in sports, is never linear. It's something that we always told players, especially during the draft process, especially working in, the G League, managing a team and a roster in the G League. Everyone's path is different, and it's never going to be a straight line. So having perspective and having the understanding that you have to see the light at the end of the tunnel through ups and downs, through, a number of no's, whether you're applying for jobs, whether you're trying to get that internship, you're going to get, way more no's than you are yeses. And all it takes is that one yes. And then once you can get your foot in the door, it's just always understanding that everyone's replaceable and having that attitude every single day. And there's some things that are going to be out of your control, but control what you can, and always kind of, be able to prove your worth the best you can at every chance. So I know that's probably a little bit more than one piece of advice, but I think it kind of just all folds into the theme there.
Absolutely. No, any advice is great advice, right? And it seems like the common trend of sports is being able to push through some tough times and persevering and believing in yourself and knowing that once you get that opportunity and you get the chance to show who you are, you can make it happen. So appreciate you for sharing that. And well, everyone, that will do it for this episode. Today, we were joined by Jeff Feld, an experienced basketball operations executive. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate you joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tyler.
Of course. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this episode. I hope you found it interesting and ultimately took something away that will help you in the next steps of your journey. And with that, we will see you next time on the Next Gen Game Plan, a podcast for future sports leaders.